ahead and call this meeting to order. It's, what time is that? Is it 3:30? Yeah. It's 3:35 on a gorgeous Thursday afternoon here in San Angelo, Texas, January 28, 2016. Let's call to order the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. Public comment. Debbie, would you like to read the public comment for me, please? Well, this will be...
The board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on the future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment.
Okay, so at this time under public comment, I would like to acknowledge that we have two outgoing board members that have faithfully and honorably served this board to the very best of their extent, and they've done a terrific job, and they've been a tremendous asset to the city and to this advisory board. And so on behalf of the city of San Angelo, we would like to extend a very, very hearty thank you. I would give you each a hug, but I think we have a little gift to present to you. So if I can have Debbie and Mike come down to the bottom, and we'll give you
the bottom?
down to the
In the pit.
The city recognized all board members outgoing with a personalized pin set. So this one's for you, Mike. Yeah. Yeah. I'd forgotten all about that, and then you emailed me. And I think it's important because they were like the first members of the new Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, so charting new grounds.
Still have met you. So you didn't spend much more time here.
Take care, sir.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so now that we've got exiting board members, we need to welcome our new board members that are going to come on to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I'm going to let Carl introduce them, and then if they'll come forward one by one and take their position over here at the board, wherever you would like to sit. So there's no assigned seating at this point, so wherever you feel comfortable, okay?
First of all is Christina Woodard, and she can speak. When you get up there, you're welcome to speak about why you wanted to serve on the board. And also is Edward Dotson.
Hi, Debbie.
I always like to read the applications because you can really feel a sense for why somebody applies and wants to serve on a volunteer board for the city. And these two applications really spoke to me from what their background is and what their passion is about recreation. And I don't want to steal
Ladies first.
I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but go ahead.
No, I would suggest ladies first. So, Ms. Woodward, if you'll kind of give us the rundown.
I am from East Texas, actually, and then I went to school at UT, Hookham, and made it on down to San Angelo for my first job as a paralegal a few years ago. And I have worked very hard to get involved with San Angelo. I got involved with the Young Professionals organization, which I'm now serving as the secretary for their board, and putting on a golf committee that we have in the works to put on a tournament in 2017 for them. And so as I've gotten involved with San Angelo, I get up, I go walk the Concho River every Saturday, and I've really gotten to love the area and what we have to offer in the city, and have just been very excited about the possibility of getting more involved. So that's a little bit about me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, joining us. Mr. Dodson?
Dodson, I'm originally from Austin, so I actually have a son going to University of Texas right now. Growing up there is a very outdoorsy town. It was kind of the life that I grew up with. Seeing everybody outdoors, playing, having a good time, and just meeting people in that atmosphere, people that you'd never seen before. And I see some of that in this town. I'd really like to hopefully expand that more. That's just kind of something that I've always liked. Right now, one of my favorite things to see is when I drive down College Hills and see everybody using the new Red Arroyo path, even though I don't know that it's 100% finished, but they're still out there, and I just love to see that. I've got 3 boys, 1 at UT. So, my younger ones are in a lot of activities, and it's like to bring and help in any way I can to bring activities to the city and to
Well, welcome aboard. On behalf of the board, we want to welcome you. If you ever have any questions, comments, please feel free to ask Francis, Mary, myself, Gloria, or Dawn. And Bitsy's on the end when she's here. So, okay, all right. Well, I think we're already ready to move on. Let's go ahead and move over to the consent agenda, which we need to approve the minutes from the last board meeting, which was held January.
December 10th.
December 10th, that's right.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. The only thing I need to add a comment is on number 2. When we had asked the San Angelo Girls Fast Pitch Association to recommend that when they present or when they come back, if they come back to this organization, to the advisory board, that they have the current financials as well as the financials from the 2012 tournament, so that we could just see their updated financials for the fiscal year. That's the only thing I saw.
So do we need to make a motion to approve those with the
We can amend that
corrections?
motion. Don, if you want to amend that motion?
Yeah, I think we need to amend the motion to include the change that Louis just cited for providing current as well as past
Okay
financial.
with that? Sure. Lori wants a second? Okay. Any other comments, questions? Any public comment? Okay. Take it to a vote. All those in favor for these minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Then the motion carries and we move on. Heidi, you got that? You okay? Okay, thank you. Next, we can move on to the discussion of the projected improvement projects, including existing need, funding, and prioritization of vision for the parks and recreation system as recommended matters related thereto of. Take it away, Carl.
This is a continuation of the last board meeting. We started to discuss this as well as the next item, but I'm going to back up just a little bit since we have 2 new board members and just kind of explain how we do major improvements in our parks recreation system. Officially, the way we get projects approved, and usually we're talking about larger projects that reach about $100,000, we go through the capital improvement program and we submit through an application different projects, the scope of that project, what we think the cost of that project is going to be, and where the funding might be for that project. That is collected with all the other applications. It's reviewed by a committee at the city management level, and then it's taken to city council and reviewed and considered and approved by city council and incorporated in the capital improvement program. It's an annual program, and it basically what it does, it charts out the next 5 years the projects that we want to tackle. And it's in basically 2 categories. Well, it's in several categories based on what type of project, but the 2 major categories are, these are the projects we want to tackle in the next 5 years that have funding, whatever funding that source is. And then the other category is future projects that we know we would like to do, but at this point we don't know where the funding is coming from. So we have several projects in both of those categories. We're not talking about any of the projects today that are funded because those are ongoing, but we do want to talk about the projects that are in the future list. We've got a long list. It was provided in the background information. And what we wanted to do, we've talked about this at a couple of meetings, and at the last meeting, we talked about let's identify a process by which we can look at all these projects that we'd like to do, because there are many, develop some criteria for how we want to determine which of these projects are more important than others based on that criteria, and then identify the top ones, the few ones that we want to identify to try to really push to try to get done, and then make a recommendation to City Council. So we're at the stage now where we've identified all the projects on our list. We've started talking about what the different criteria could be that we could use as a tool to prioritize these and score them and prioritize them. And so now today, we want to talk about that criteria, and we have a recommendation for what that criteria could be. We want to we want to get a recommendation, a decision from the board today, if that's the criteria you want to use, and then make a decision on how we want to score all those projects, and then bring them back to the board to make a final recommendation of which projects we want to push forward. So a smaller subcommittee of me and Francis met to kind of talk about all the different criteria we've kind of thought about. And we got some input from some of the board members. And then we took all that and we boiled it down into basically 5 main criteria. And this is what they are listed here on the slide. One is does it fit the vision for what we see our Parks and Recreation system to have? Second, does it provide services where we currently don't have services? The third is a financing component. What capacity does it have to get funded and to get supplementary funding from grants and other outside sources, as well as does it have potential for naming rights or sponsorship to get funding for maintenance? Fourth is basically coming from council priorities. Council meets once a year to establish priorities in terms of projects, so we do get that. And then the fifth is the public need, and primarily we get that from our master plan. So going in a little bit deeper, talking about a vision, and that may be something the board wants to kind of pinpoint what is our mission and our vision. This is kind of the first stab at that, and I produced this tagline or this mission statement, keeping it short and sweet, probably about 3 years ago. And I kind of boil it down to what we're all about. It's making memories and building community. We're in the business of making memories for everybody, children, families, senior citizens, that they can carry throughout their life. Building community is bringing folks together to recreate and work together and cooperate, and building a healthy community. And in terms of the vision, this comes from a column I wrote about a year ago. It wasn't specifically about a vision, but it touches on what our vision could be. And it speaks about making a community healthy and individuals healthy. Yes, Louis?
So is that currently our mission statement now?
No, we do not have an official mission
statement.
or vision statement. This is a first stab at it.
Are we proposing to adopt the mission?
I don't know that we can based on what how the agenda's written, but
No, not today, but I'm just saying for
in the future, it
Yes.
would be a good thing to do.
Okay.
And the second one is, and we've talked about this before, but these circles on the map show the different parks and their service areas. And this second map shows these locations where we really don't have park services. We've got service holes. So if we were to provide a park in any one of those areas, it would provide park services where they currently do not exist.
We need to take a time out?
Are we okay?
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So that's the second one, providing services where they currently do not exist. The third one is like what I talked about. What funding sources can we get for the development and the maintenance? Those are different possibilities. And then this is the last council meeting. Council is due for another a meeting to establish priorities. This is from the last one. These are the non-infrastructure related priorities that relate to Parks and Recreation. It doesn't consider water and streets and sewer lines and things like that. Top on the list is restroom facilities at parks, riverbank stabilization, and then our recreation center. Next one is, how does it show up on our master plan? As you recall, in the master plan, one of the most important things we got is from the public is what have they identified as the top facility needs in our parks, starting with hike and bike trails, dog park, etc. This is what the public has told us they wanted. So in my mind, the next step is to agree with the criteria and the scoring would be, and then score those, take those projects and score them based on that criteria, and then bring it back to the board, make a final recommendation. And in your background was the chart. You have to use magnifying glasses to read it, but it is on one sheet. It lists all the projects and it states those criteria, and you basically can score a rating from 1 to 5 based on that criteria to come up with a total. And then we compare the totals based on all those projects to identify the top projects. So one way you may want to do it is to have a subcommittee, and then that subcommittee will meet with me, and we'll score. Of course, the board can score if they want to as well, but the subcommittee will come back to the board with a recommendation.
Technically, Francis, why don't you jump in and kind of speak to that real quick about what you've done so far with the establishing the criteria, just to make sure.
Yes, Carly and I were the committee.
Okay.
It's time to
It was the
expand.
subcommittee.
Subcommittee.
Subcommittee. What we wanted to do is really doing something simple and actionable. Therefore, you get only 5 criteria. Actionable because we can do it, the staff can do it. You just need to know, number one, is it equitable? Meaning, we don't want to be redundant. We want to bring to the people who do not have a park or any recreation right now that, and I remember Mary insisted on senior people, for example. What we wanted to make sure of is that we could find financing, because we know that water and highways, roads are basically the priorities in San Angelo, rightfully so. But we don't want to give away the chance to develop San Angelo the way I think Ed talked about. What I wanted to make sure as well is the City Council will not be opposed to what we propose, so they had to be in the loop. It makes a lot of sense. They also can sometimes join some money in the project. Finally, what I thought was important to have the park staff involved. And we talked about Mr. Olmsted, who's the guy who developed Central Park in New York, who probably is the most famous designer of parks. And Central Park works for everybody in New York. So we need to have a system of parks that will work the same way. So the park staff, for me, was very important. And finally, evidently, we need to ask the citizens of San Angelo. Well, thankfully, it has happened before, and we have the list. And if you look at this list, it's rather remarkable. The number one request was hike bike trails. Well, guess what? We had a Red Arroyo. And as you said, it already works. It's not even open. And second, the dog park. So the 2 first on the list are basically now taken care of. Not we don't want to have another trail anywhere else in the future, maybe. But then after that, you have a certain number of other things that may be part of our list. So with that in mind, 5 criteria, and each criteria can be rated, let's say, for 1 to 5. If there's no appetite from the City Council, it's a 1 or a 0. There's a strong appetite for it, it becomes a 5. If there's no financing whatsoever, no chance to ever get anything, it's a 0 out of 25 possible. That's a lot. And so we can do the same thing for each. That's the way I looked at it. Very simple and actionable. So I think what you have in front of you responds to that need.
And we went through a couple of dry runs to see how it would work, and it works.
We're sold.
Any other input?
Really, Francis, what you said.
That's my French, I'm sorry.
Let's go back with number one was what? I completely did not get that.
The equitable part of it,
Equitable.
which
The
means,
question of
Equitable. You want to be
equitability.
equitable, that's number one.
Yeah, and that's why
for
we,
all age groups in San Angelo.
yeah, and where something doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist for an age group, for example, yeah, it's a 5.
And I explained it as providing services where none currently exist. It's a question of equity.
Not really. Equitable doesn't mean it just provides where they don't exist. Equitable is entirely different from where one exists, in my mind.
We had in mind the map that you've seen here, and there are definitely areas that are in development right now that don't have anything. That was now, age group, no, but certainly it could be included in that. But it was more geographic in my mind. So I'm sorry, but if you look at the list of what the people have requested us, there is a senior center right in the middle. So if it is a senior center, it will get a good mark.
So I think, Gloria, in my mind, the senior centers was not scoring as high as, let's say, the hike and bike trails. But now that the hike and bike trail is done and the dog park is completed, can the senior centers move up in the scoring to where it has a higher priority now? And I believe it does.
It does.
Well, also, if y'all recall,
Yes, ma'am.
when I'm complaining about the senior center
Yes, ma'am.
for 20-some-odd years and counting, we were talking about possibly having a multi-use
Yes.
center. Now, that goes back up to
The brown.
three acres and
Right.
a brown thing
Right.
out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was on the list you gave a while ago,
That's
of the
right.
3 things that the city council
So it's going to score
had
high.
and their prioritization. That's where they admit.
Right.
Are we gonna call the senior center then part of the multi-generational center? If we do, we don't need to worry about just a senior center.
It's
Yeah,
true.
and that's I think when we score it and if we comprise it and put it together, yes, you're right. I think the logic stands to reason that combining the two, meeting those higher priorities, because it now fits in the higher mobility of that criteria, yeah, it'll score higher and it'll be a more higher priority.
And if our city council has already said this is number 3
All right.
on the city council, we just probably don't need to even worry about a senior center.
Probably so.
Except if it's gonna take 100 years, still
I
tear
think
that building down.
What we're arguing to do is let's take the argument out. Let's let the numbers speak for themselves. Let's go through the exercise, bring it back to the board, and see how it lays out once we've scored everything. That's what we're asking to
So
do.
at this point, yes, we're just trying to just lay out the criteria,
Yes.
let the committee and any interested board members who are willing to score and bring their scoring or their results to the subcommittee so that we can present to the board to make an official recommendation to the city council.
Exactly.
Okay? Right?
Wonderful.
Okay. Okay?
I got the one. Now, did you have any more numbers besides one?
I'll tell you, why don't we get together after the meeting and we'll sit down and do a quick workshop on the scoring and the criteria with Francis one-on-one. Okay?
I just want to understand it.
I do too. I'm with you. So I think that'll help us a little bit, kind of underline it and get it worked out. Okay?
Yes. So at this point, we're asking for a committee. We're asking to set up a committee.
Correct. I don't think we need, do we need official action on that?
No, but I would like to know who's interested.
Okay. I will join on the committee. Francis, of course, is on the committee.
And just probably one other.
Okay. And so myself, Mary, Francis, and yourself, we will form the subcommittee to do the scoring, and then any other board member can definitely do the scoring,
Yes.
present your results to Carl, so that we can bring it to the subcommittee, and then bring those results to the board to make a recommendation to the city council.
Exactly.
Okay?
As long as it's in writing.
Yes,
And
Carl's an excellent
And we're
writer.
talking about this project list, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that this is what we're going to score?
Yes, that's correct.
That's the chart.
Yeah.
The one that's in our.
Yeah,
packet.
and that's where, you're right. And that's, we'll produce our final version, maybe one larger so you can read it. And then we'll get that to y'all. But after the meeting, we'll go through a quick little workshop just to show you how to score it.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Moving on. Discussion of the existing park system, including park meeting condition and whether the park should be invested or divested, or recommending matters there related to.
Again, this is a follow-up from a previous item, and we've talked about this a few other times as well. And I'm not going to cover all the ground again, but we talked about the entire park system. We looked at the different service areas. We explained what's been done in the past, because we have taken some action in the past regarding some parks, downgrading those and taking some steps towards either investing or divesting. We've talked about what's left to be done, and then we've talked about what might else could be divested. So I'm going to skip past all this. This just shows, how we kind of showed the condition of each location and made recommendations whether we should reinvest or divest. And then we boiled it all down to these 5 locations. And you might want to use your map if you're not familiar with some of these are located, but I can show you on the map here. Perky Park. It's located up here, the northeast side of town. It's a small park. It has already mostly been converted to open space. Roger, is there anything left on there? There's very little left at that park. Chapa Park. Located right, where is it?
On
Here.
Avenue O
Right there.
and Hill Street, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's close where that red dot is.
Yeah.
It has been converted to open space. It's all done. I think only the walkway is left. Kiwanis Park, that has been converted to open space. The only thing left are trees and a slab.
A&M
Look,
and Avenue N.
there it is, right there.
Right on.
It's on the, yeah. If you're going to HEB from the east, you pass it. North Concho Park, and it is open space except for there is a disc golf course there. It is right here. In Shady Point Circle Park, it's not shown listed, but it's right about there. Right there. Talking about each of these again, and I'll put Perky and Chapa together. Those properties were acquired in the 70s through the federal government for development as parks. We would have to take a process to back out of that arrangement. It might be easier, and since they're not large properties, we wouldn't really be able to sell them for much. It might be easier to basically turn them over to public housing and have housing developed on those sites. I think they're about half an acre or a little bit larger. So that would be if we took any next step, it would be to do that, is to divest ourselves of those properties and have them turned over to public housing. Next would be Kiwanis Park. And we talked about this before, but there are 2 issues with Kiwanis Park. One, we can't sell it. There's a reversionary clause in the deed. If we want to get rid of it, it goes back to the estate. The other issue is there is an undocumented piles of rubbish. It wasn't a landfill, but there are piles of rubbish underneath there. We might be able to make some money by digging those up and selling them as artifacts, but so we have two issues with that
I
property.
just got some shovels for you if you ever have any spare time to go out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then North Concho Park, we don't really see a long-term need for it, but if we do want to keep a certain width along the river, perhaps 75 to 100 feet, so we could keep a public trail along the river. There is a substantial amount of conglomerate, that hard concrete-like stone in portions of it, so it would be hard to develop, but there are other portions of it that could be developed. And so eventually we could sell some of that property. And then Shady Point Circle, that property could be sold, but the money from the sale would go into the Lake Nasworthy Trust Fund, which we can use the interest from that fund, but wouldn't get the money straight out. So those are the 5 parks that we could take some action on. And we probably do need to take action on the Kiwanis one, because at some point we're going to have to address what's underneath the ground. So we're looking for a recommendation as to what steps we should take.
I think with the exception of North Concho, that we could pretty much say, let's go. But I think we ought to hold on to North Concho. It would be my suggestion, if there's not a whole lot of maintenance or upkeep involved in holding on to that one, since it's right there on the river and does have potential for other uses. If there's any that we might want to hold on to, I think it would be North Concho. But the other 4, I would say, I would recommend that we could just start the divestiture procedures.
Okay, so on Perky and Chop, it would be to see if we can transfer it over to public housing, and Shady Point, see if we can put them up for sale, or maybe adoption by the homeowners as a homeowner park or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or
then
the people that park in their boats there, boat riders there,
Right.
they might want to use it.
all right, and then Kiwanis is to see what options we have on the deed, and then to see what we need to do in environmental assessment.
Did you make that in the form of a motion?
I will.
I'll entertain it.
I'll make a motion that we begin divestiture procedures on Perky Park, Chapa Park, Kiwanis Park, and Shady Point Circle Park, and leave North Concho Park in the hands of Parks and Recreation for the time being.
Thank you, Gloria. Any other discussion points or comments from the board? Any from the public? Okay, we're ready to take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There any opposed or abstain? Then the ayes have it, and you have your recommendation, Carl.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does council have any input at all on that, Carl, or can you just run with the divestiture?
Well, what we'll do is first work with legal. That'll be our next step, and work with the neighborhood services department. I don't think council probably will need to hear about Shady Point.
Depending on what legal,
Right. Our next step is really to check with legal, make sure we run all the traps there first.
Right.
But,
so I'll have to approve any sale or anything.
yeah, I think Shady Point's probably the only one that needs to go to council.
Depending on what you find at Kiwanis.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Casey.
Basically, just a couple of things that we want to bring you up to date on. First one, I just want to tell you how everything went was our preseason basketball tournament. We ended up with 48 teams. It was a great turnout. It was more teams than we've had in the past, and we've changed it from a 2-game format to a 3-game guaranteed format. So people really liked it. We have got 0 complaints on that tournament so far. John Henry was a lead in putting that together. It was a great tournament. We ended up making about $6,500 off of that tournament, which is very positive. And the negative comments are at zero. Is me being a coach for the past 4 years here is even more great. Next thing I want to tell you about is a date night. Obviously, hopefully you've heard about it, but we have sold about 800 tickets so far, and it's just barely over 2 weeks away. So we're very excited about it. It is Denim and Diamonds this year, if you haven't heard of that. But, we're hoping to sell a total of 2,400 tickets, 700 for the first 3 nights and 300 for the last night. We do have a caterer picked now. In the past couple of weeks, it was Fiddle Fire. So we're going to be serving brisket, sliced chicken breast, and sausage. So should be a very good meal. They're bringing in their 100-year-old wagon, which fits right along with the theme. They're going to be playing the fiddle while people are eating dinner. So should be a great event, as it always is. This will be the 26th year. So I'm very much looking forward to it. It'll be the first time that I'm not only attending, but have something to do with the planning part of it. So very excited about that. Another thing that we have, which we had a meeting this past Monday with the parents. We've started an adaptive basketball league. So it's for special needs kids. We have 22 people signed up, and they're meeting this Sunday at 1:30, and we're going to decide on how to break the teams up. We're going to have all 22 kids in there, and we're going to decide on how to break the teams up. And we're trying to move some of our current games at our rec centers to other locations so that we can mix them in with the games of all the other teams that are currently playing in our league, which is 130-something teams. So great things going on in the recreation division. And your baseball, I brought my resident expert on baseball, John Henry Perez, to tell you about the Pony League that we're going to be bringing back here in just a second. So do you have any questions for me? Anything?
I have a comment. I want to say it's awesome to have adaptive sports, to see that being integrated.
And
Awesome.
that is exactly what we got from the parents, saying it's about time and thank you so much. I thought one mother was going to start crying on us Monday evening at the meeting, but yeah, we agree. Looking very much forward to it. Thank you.
My name is John Henry Perez. I'm a recreation supervisor in a program for the Texas Bank Sports Complex. So a little bit about the Pony League. We're in the process of getting a what you want to call a flyer fact sheet out to coaches and also to the public to try to have a meeting about this league to see if we can draw any attention to try to have a league started this year, this spring, which will be the spring to the summer. We're looking at starting somewhere around April, finishing up around July. Now we are open to what you call select teams, also Little League teams, anybody that wants to bring a team in. The ages that we'll be offering are 8 years old all the way up to 14 years old. So from depending on how many teams sign up, then we can sort of work on a price to charge these teams. We will not have any individual sign-up forms for these kids. They would all have to come in as a team, because right now we just don't have probably the budget to put teams together, order uniforms, order equipment, find volunteer coaches that want to do this. So they would have to come in as a whole team.
What did we do last year, John Henry? Didn't we do a Pony League in the winter?
We did a fall league, and we had 4 10U teams, and we had 3 12U teams.
How did they do?
It went pretty good.
Went all right?
Yes. And it was a couple of club teams here. They were all teams that came in as a team. We did do the individual at that time, but the sign-ups were just, we didn't have enough to fill teams or to make a team.
The expectation is that the spring league should be hopefully a little bit more
Correct.
than the fall.
Correct.
Right.
And it would last, like I said, we will start in we'll start in April and go all the way till end of July. And the format I'm sort of looking at is anywhere from 2 to 3 games a month. What that means is some of these select teams play out of town, so we would play games on Sundays, the weekends that were free, that they weren't traveling. So we'll guarantee them some games on the free weekends they were eligible to play here in San Angelo.
Are they sanctioned through any league? Or
We sanctioned through USSSA.
USSSA?
Yes.
Okay.
Will this be a co-ed team, or is it?
Well, it could be co-ed. Girls can play
Okay.
baseball with the boys. There's some teams that have girls. It would be up to if they're playing now. Little League carries girls on the Little League baseball teams also. It would just be up to them. Like I said, they would just have to come in as a team.
Any other questions? Thanks, John Henry. Appreciate it.
There we go.
There you go.
Ready for the next item?
Yes, sir.
Just quick updates on different projects we have going on. The first is the Bosque. And when I'm talking about the Bosque, it's the section there on the north bank between Irving and Chadbourne Streets, where we first developed the washer pitching playing areas, the bocce ball court, and we have a restroom there. We've been in the process of building a new concession building, improving the site, the grounds there. The building is done. We're about to get turned over the keys here, if not today, tomorrow. The putt-putt golf course is mostly done. It's about 90% done. The next step we have to take is to, we're going to stain some of the paver stones. We couldn't get the paver stones quite in the color we wanted, so we're going to stain those, spend a few $100s. Once that's done, the carpet's going to get laid down, and then we're going to do some landscaping in that area. And we are shooting for a soft opening of the Bosque area for spring break. And we hope to have the concessionaire running and food trucks down there. Spring Creek Park boat ramp. This is an item that had been going on before this board was even created. And it's evolved over the time, but what was last approved by City Council was to add some funding to that so we could enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Chamber of Commerce for them to work with the boat committee and contractors to build the ramp. The city will purchase a cofferdam system, which we're in the process of doing, so that we can build that new boat ramp before the boat races. So all systems are go off with that. The Red Arroyo Trail, it's an engineering project, but it'll be ours once it's done. We are being told it'll be finished by the end of February. Pretty much all the trail is done. The restroom is getting near completion. There's a little bit of drainage work that still needs to be done. And once the contractor is done, complete, released from that, and I don't want to get in there until they are, because they are getting assessed liquidated damages at this point. Once they're clear of that, then we'll go in and construct the dog park. We're in the process now of making sure we've got the specifications done and are ready to bid out for the fencing work. So we're not waiting for us once we get the go to get in there. We will need to do a little bit of drainage work. If you go out there, you might see some water setting out. It's good to have water setting out. It's a good sign. But of course, we've known the dog park is in the floodway. If we get a lot of rain, there's going to be water there. But we do need to improve the drainage such that the water doesn't sit there. So that project, we hope to begin that project in March and be ready for May. Texas Bank Sports Complex, if you recall, council did authorize us to move forward with adding the restrooms / concessions building at Quad 2, add safety netting at the backstops, look at an alternative building, a pavilion by the playground. And so right now we're getting the agreement finalized with the architect so that we can get the architect hired to move forward with that. And we also got authorization, and that's being funded by half-cent sales tax. We did get authorization to move forward with the 29th Street Sports Complex, and we may have a separate item with the board to recommend a new name for this facility, because I've never liked that one. But that's going to be, it's the Corps of Engineers property that's off of 29th Street, and is it gun range? No, it's Golf Course Lane, whatever it is, up on the north side of town. It's the concept now is to develop it as, in this, we had some concern from our city attorney. She wanted to make sure that it met the intent of the language in the ballot, and the ballot language states it's for consolidation of youth sports. So to do that, what we're going to do is develop it as a consolidated practice complex. So we'll have fields for baseball, softball, kickball, soccer, flag football, with restrooms and other improvements. So that's the direction we're heading now. And we've got to make sure the money's in the right place so we can start the request for qualifications process to get that going. Those are project updates. Stay busy.
Carl, are the boat races going to be the end of the year, or do they move back to
Into June. It'll be,
in June?
right, like I don't know which Saturday it is that weekend. It's the 20-something of June. So we hope to have the boat ramp done before May, actually.
What are we doing for the Red Royal Trail as far as like, is there an official kickoff or opening or anything? Or?
Yeah, we will have one, but we don't know when it will be yet at this point. At this point, it'll be sometime this spring. And we'll need one as well for the Bosque.
Another question concerning the Red Arroyo Trail. I've seen trucks going around even on the facility itself. We will have in the future some way to stop trucks and allow only the park people.
These are
to go
private
through?
trucks?
Yeah.
Okay. I think there are going to be some bollards. If they're not, we can add some bollards or some boulders.
We probably do.
We don't want trucks.
It would be very safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That's all I've got.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about or any comments about the updates? No? Okay, moving right along. Let's move up to consideration of future agenda items. We need to look at our next meeting date for February. Short month.
Twenty-fifth.
25th?
I need to remember to have that date ready because you always ask it.
So at least you'll know now. So February, you'll
February 25th.
February 23rd, 3:30, same place, same time.
Yes.
I would also like to add to put on the agenda, on the February agenda, I would like to get a follow-up on daddy-daughter date night report. And then I would also like to set up an executive session on the agenda so we can get approval for that.
We're going to review the scores from
Yes, and of course review the scores from the
committee.
From number 2 from the regular agenda today.
Do you want to start trying to tackle a mission and vision statement then?
Yes, thank you. Let's also tackle that. Anybody else have anything?
Yes, I have a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
I have a question. When we got this, what we're going to discuss, down there, I'm assuming this is all out at the lake, and you had Hot Slough Park as a possible divest or invest, but it wasn't mentioned today. The only one you got on there was Shadow Point today.
Right, we talked about it before. We were interested in doing that. I don't know if we can talk much about it now because we're kind of off the agenda item, but we talked about
back on the agenda for next time because I have some questions about that one, Hot Slough Park.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, sounds like it, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to come to a close. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned. Have a great afternoon, everybody.